Hey there team, I am super excited to introduce to you Climb, which is the first phase of the new structure of JST Compete programming. Climb 1 inch at a time. In this video, I'm going to give you an overview of the whole phase, and then in separate videos, I'm going to give you a deep dive into the what and the why behind all the other elements of this phase, okay? The what and the why behind the weightlifting, the gymnastics, the conditioning, etc. This mountain here is not just there because this phase is called Climb, but it's going to be a key theme of the phase. We're going to be working on broadening the base of the mountain and heightening the peak. What do we mean by that? Broadening the base? Well, we're going to be working on our aerobic conditioning and building that aerobic base, but we're also going to be building the base of our weightlifting, so more sound technique. We're going to be building the base of our strength, okay, by working hypertrophy and volume, building bigger muscles. The base of our gymnastics by working time in positions. But as well as that, we're going to be heightening the peak of the mountain by looking at sprint work in our metcons and improving our ability to go fast and move at a fast cycle speed and rep speed. A lot of the time, we just work in the middle of this mountain in CrossFit, okay? We're working at moderate rep speed and moderate time domains. So for this phase, we're going to be working at building that big base and heightening that peak, because we know it's then going to improve the middle of the mountain. Here's some key information then about this phase. Phase length is going to be 18 weeks long. Okay, that's going to be structured in 3 6-week blocks, 5 weeks on, and then 1 week of deload. Block 1's going to run from the 31st of March to the 11th of May. Headlines then for this phase. Little Ella's smiling and talking us through them. In the weightlifting, in our strength, we're going to be looking at strength, endurance, and volume and hypertrophy, okay? Building the size of our muscles, which we'll deep dive into in the weightlifting section. Then in our Olympic lifting, we're going to be looking at improving our weightlifting technique. In our gymnastics, there's going to be a big focus on strict gymnastic strength. In our conditioning, like we said, broadening the aerobic base. In our workouts, heightening that sport-specific peak in very short time domain sprints. And then in our accessory work, we're going to be looking at improving our unilateral robustness of our upper body and our lower body. So single arm work, single leg work to iron out asymmetries and prevent any injuries happening. Hey team, welcome back. We're now going to deep dive into the weightlifting and strength in the Climb phase. So the what of the Olympic weightlifting, so our snatch and our clean and jerk, there'll be a big focus on pause and eccentric work. This will be a mix of pausing in the pull, so as we're coming up, holding for 3 seconds in this phase at the knee, and pausing in the catch. And then we're also going to have isolated pause jerk work, so pausing in the dip of the jerk and in the catch of the split. There's also going to be eccentric and tempo work. So that's working from the hang, lowering slowly down, working some time under tension. The pause duration, so how long we're pausing for or how long we're doing the eccentric for, is going to reduce over the phase as intensity, so as the weight increases. So for this block, we're working at 3 seconds for all our pauses, and that's going to reduce down over the 3 phases as then our percentages go up. The why behind that is going to be building our technique and building our strength in positions, okay? So if we're pausing at the knee and working that time under tension at the knee, it's going to build our ability to hold our position as we pull from the floor. It's going to build our bracing mechanics and our breathing mechanics and prevent us from being pulled out of position. When we're pausing in the catch, whether that be in the front rack or in the bottom of an overhead squat or in the split, we're obviously then going to be building our strength in those positions, okay? And also working our technique. If you're asked to pause in a power snatch catch and you always starfish, hopefully you can then tidy those positions up and start to get your feet in the right positions. Let's move on then to our strength work. Strength work. For our back and front squat, we're going to be hitting these volume cluster sets, okay? These are going to be where I hit, say, 6 reps. I then rest 30 seconds. I then hit another 6 reps, rest 30 seconds. I then hit a final 6 reps, and then I get 3 minutes rest, okay? That's what a cluster set means, okay? Not to be confused with a clean and thruster. With those volume cluster sets, they are going to be very challenging initially, and they're going to feel like we're doing a workout, okay? We're going to be out of breath, we're going to feel pumped, and there's going to be a degree of muscle soreness afterwards. So make sure, if you are someone who does get soreness after squatting, particularly in high volume, that you start at the lower percentages and the lower set ranges, and then you increase as your body starts to get used to the load of the volume cluster sets. Bookending those cluster sets are going to be a high rep heavy. So to start with, that's going to be build to a heavy 10. And then at the other end, there's going to be volume drop sets. Okay, drop sets are where I maybe hit an AMRAP at 60%, then reduce to 50%, hit another AMRAP, as many reps as possible, then reduce down and get some serious volume from there. Again, with both the high rep heavy and the volume drop sets, if you're someone who gets sore, tight adductors, tight hip flexors, then manage the load. Don't go to your full 10 RM and don't go to full failure on the AMRAPs either. On our deadlifting, which is going to be on a Wednesday, we're going to be working a tempo and eccentric progression, okay? So we're going to be doing a deadlift, and then on the eccentric, there's going to be a slow tempo. Now, obviously, that's going to transfer well to our Olympic weightlifting, where we're also working time under tension and positions. It's going to build our bracing mechanics, build the strength endurance of our posterior chain, and contribute overall to our deadlift improving. The why behind it, just been through it. Building strength, endurance, and muscle size. Okay, we've just finished a phase where we've been really working our top end strength, and now we're moving across to strength endurance, that combo quality of strength and endurance that we need in CrossFit. But we also know that later down the line, when we want to hit our top end strength numbers, that muscle size is a contributor to that, okay? The more muscle units we have, the more strength potential we have. So with that in mind, we want to be working hypertrophy at this point, because later on when we hit that top end strength, it's going to contribute. Then our strength accessory work, the what, is going to be yielding isometrics, okay? You maybe have seen these. Often we don't work isometrics enough in our strength and conditioning training. Yielding meaning I'm yielding the force of gravity and weight, and isometric meaning a hold, okay? So it might be a kettlebell, goblet, split squat hold, where I'm holding the most challenging part of the split squat, and having to yield that weight for 20 to 30 seconds. I think when we do that, we'll really feel if we've got asymmetries between right and left legs, and then it'll give us some guidance and also help balance those asymmetries out, because we know if we've got one leg that's a bit stronger than the other, it'll cause some overuse injuries and niggles down the line. So ironing them out at this point, after, like we said, we've done a real top-end strength focus last phase, we're now going less sport-specific and hopefully improving our overall robustness. Then we've also got some triplanar unilateral work. Now, that sounds a bit fancy, but what that basically means is often in CrossFit, we're just working in the sagittal plane. We're going to be working in the frontal and transverse plane a lot in our strength accessory, so giving us greater movement freedom. And like we said, if we're always working in one plane of motion, it can mean that our body has weaknesses in the other plane of motion that are then going to maybe contribute to injuries down the line. So we want to iron them out. The why, we've just been through that. Robustness, injury prevention, movement freedom. Okay, we don't want asymmetries, and we also want to be able to move fluidly through all planes of motion and through all joint motions. Hey there, team. Welcome back. Now I'm going to talk you through the gymnastics for the climb phase. In this phase, we're going to have a big ring muscle up focus. Okay, this is going to be 2 sessions a week are going to be spent developing our ring muscle up. Specific work will focus on strict strength and volume. So we're either going to be working through some strict ring muscle up work or pairing kipping ring muscle up with strict ring muscle up work. If you've not got strict ring muscle up work, don't worry, there'll be options for you. Positional strength, so that's time and holds in positions, eccentrics, and then we're going to layer in touches on kipping ring muscle ups. Okay, often when we just work strict strength and we don't then have touches, it doesn't transfer quite as well. So there's going to be frequent touches on kipping ring muscle ups layered into all our strict work, all our eccentric work, all our positional work, so that we're always working both and we're always improving both at the same time. The accessory work is going to comprise of ring pushing and ring pulling. This is going to be both loaded work, okay, so it might be a weight vest, feet elevated ring row, or a weighted strict ring dip, and then holds as well, so ring support holds, ring dip holds. So you can see we're spending a lot of time building strength in all the positions that we're going to need for our ring muscle ups to improve. Then in our accessory work as well, there's going to be kipping abdominal tension. What that means is when we go into that kip position and we're in our big arch position and our abdominals are at their most lengthened, they're one of our biggest contributors to being able to then keep a tight kipping position rather than a bendy back, knees bent type position. So the more we can get better in our kipping ab tension, tighter our kip's going to be, and then the more power we're going to be able to generate from that kip. As well as that, we're going to be using our abs on the second session. We're going to be looking at turnover abdominal power. That's kind of speed strength. That's what I mean by power, where that moment where we turn over and crunch and engage our abs. We're going to be doing a few different med ball and plyometric type exercises to improve the power and speed and strength of our abs in that crunching turnover. Now, why are we having such a focus on ring muscle ups? It's a movement that all athletes almost definitely just need continued work on, okay? And probably get away with not touching on, say, a toe to bar for a few weeks, but ring muscle ups, for most athletes, we need continued work on them over and over if they're going to both maintain and get better. Also, it transfers well to other aspects of gymnastics. So we work on our ring muscle ups a lot. It's going to, improve our bar muscle ups, going to improve our pulling strength, our dipping strength, our tension in our toes to bar, etc. Okay. And then why are we having such a focus on the strict and positional work? It's obviously going to build a base for greater capacity. Okay, we can't just continue to do EMOMs of ring muscle ups and think that's going to get us better at ring muscle ups. At some point, we've got to break the movements down, work on the different parts of the ring muscle up, and then that'll contribute to a better ring muscle up later on. Then in this phase, there's also going to be a focus on the strict handstand push-up. Okay, we recognise it's something that JST athletes need to work on, and so we want to really hammer it. It's going to be 2 sessions a week where we're going to be doing strict handstand push-ups and then chest-facing handstand push-ups. This specific work will focus on strict volume, okay? Volume and density work. Density is those AMRAPs where we're working a lot of reps in those AMRAPs. I'm also going to be doing deficit and eccentric strength work, okay? Don't panic if you've not got deficit strict handstand push-ups. There'll be options for you. And then eccentric work as well. We'll be lowering ourselves down as slowly as possible. As well as that, there'll be some handstand push-up holds. These are where we hold at the halfway point of the handstand push-up, and that's going to be paired with some pressing work. So holds and pressing combo to really build and improve our handstand push-up overall strength and strength endurance. The accessory work is going to comprise of more vertical pressing strength, but also tricep strength endurance, okay? The chest-facing handstand push-up in particular is very tricep-y, so the more we can build that strength in, say, diamond push-ups, dumbbell rollbacks, all that kind of stuff, the more it's going to transfer. The why, as I said, they're a movement that athletes need continued work on, and also strong pressing capacity, strong overhead pressing capacity obviously transfers well across the spectrum of stuff that we need to work on, wall balls, thrusters, etc. The stronger and more strength endurance we have during any overhead pressing, the better in CrossFit. Chest to bar pull-ups and toes to bar then are going to be touched on in the same session just once per week. Okay, so there's going to be one touch on them per week where we do a little bit of strict chest to bar, a little bit of strict toes to bar work, with then some kipping volume layered in. These sessions all combined of strict strength and strict strength endurance work, and there will be, like I said, some kipping work layered in there. This is going to build a base for greater capacity, like we said, same as the ring muscle ups. Okay, if we work that strict strength for our chest to bar pull-ups, it's going to transfer to our butterfly chest to bar pull-ups and the volume of toes to bar, etc. Just one session a week to allow for that greater focus on muscle ups and handstand push-ups, which we feel like are at this phase a more important work on for us. Rope climbs. We're going to really look at progressing our legless rope climb in this phase. Sessions are going to alternate between a legless rope climb capacity and skill progression. That'll be little bits of the legless rope climb broken down. So we might do a legged rope climb into a legless rope climb descent, and just breaking down the skill there, okay? And then we're also going to be doing rope climbs paired with some pulling and grip strength endurance work, okay? So think one legless rope climb into single arm rope rows, that kind of thing, really building our pulling strength and our grip strength. Why? Well, again, just like the strict handstand push-ups and the ring muscle-ups, these are a movement that athletes do need continued work and focus on, and that strong grip and pulling strength transfers well across training. Finally, what about our handstand walks? These are going to be touched on not in our gymnastics specific sessions, but in a weekly skills Saturday workout, which is going to be higher skill and low intensity piece. Okay, higher skill, building that peak, and they're going to be quite high. So there's going to be handstand ramps involved, handstand pirouettes, just really building our skill level in the handstand. Alongside that, we've got some unilateral accessory work. This will focus on the transverse plane and the frontal plane shoulder robustness, okay? What that means, again, like I said, we're often just working in this up and down motion in our gymnastics, whereas shoulder abduction and adduction and internal and external rotation often aren't fully touched. So by adding that work in, we're going to be building joint health, contributing towards injury prevention. Brilliant. Welcome back then, team. Going to talk through the conditioning for the climb phase now. Mondays we're going to be working a mixed modal aerobic conditioning block. Okay, we can see our mountain has returned. This is going to be an accumulation phase where we're going to accumulate volume of aerobic mixed modal work. Okay, this is going to be continuous work moving between ergs and low skill movements. Okay, and we're looking for constant work for that 5 minutes, okay? The 5 minutes that it's going to be for this first phase. So we might start on a rower, work for a minute, move on to wall balls, work for a minute, then to bike, work for a minute, burpees, work for a minute, ski, work for a minute, and then we'll rest and we'll repeat that for multiple sets, okay? And what we're doing here is improving our ability to just constantly work for a given period of time, okay? Often maybe when we're doing a CrossFit workout, there's bits where we have to stop, aren't there? You know, I have to stop before I then go for another heavy clean, and so I rest for 20 seconds and my body trains in that domain. I have to rest here because I can't hit another ring muscle up, so I'll rest for 15 seconds. Whereas to get better at, let's say 25.1, that low skill mid-time domain open style workout, we've got to get better at just working constantly, and that's why we're going to be broadening that base, accumulating time of low skill, low intensity mixed modal work. That's what we're doing here, okay? I've already talked through the why. Building and broadening the base, focusing on performing well in low skill mid-time domain open style workouts, okay? And the only way we're going to do that is just by building time doing it, okay? And it can't be at an intensity where at some point I need to stop and not do anything, okay? It needs to be an intensity where I work constantly for that period. Then, alongside that, there's Fraser making sure you are working hard. We're going to be doing a 30-minute bike progression, okay? So it's going to start, I'm afraid, with 30-minute max average watts on the bike. And then we're going to go into a progression on that. And there's going to be a good amount of long, steady state intervals, okay? So just working at that 30-minute threshold pace for a long period, building our duration, building our base. But then layered into that are going to be some shorter, faster, higher threshold intervals. Like if someone was, Fraser there, was shouting at you as you're trying to bury yourself for the last minute of the 30 minutes, okay? So again, increasing that peak, building that base. The why, like I said, building and broadening the aerobic base, increasing our lactate threshold, that ability to push under fatigue in the legs, and then improving our bike-specific muscle endurance. Then on a Friday, we're going to be mixing, alternating weeks, an A week and a B week, between a low stroke rate row progression and then some mixed erg conditioning. Okay, the low stroke rate row is going to be, let's say, 4 minutes, working at 18 to 20 strokes per minute, so potentially lower than you would in a regular workout or when usually doing your row. And then we've also got some zone 3 mixed erg conditioning. If you don't know your heart rates and don't have wearables that can track that, then just there'll be some guidance on that. But we're thinking I'm not having a brew and a chat like maybe if I was doing my zone 2 work, but I'm also not absolutely melting myself like if I was doing a proper workout. I'm somewhere in between, okay? The lower stroke rate sessions are going to build stroke consistency and stroke power, okay? So if I can generate good power at 18 strokes per minute, it'll then transfer up the chain, okay? And we're also just looking at our technique and our consistency. It's going to be quite a long time to be working at that low rate, and so I'll need to be efficient and technically proficient in my rowing pool. And then our zone 3 mixed erg conditioning is going to improve our aerobic endurance, that base, and build our threshold. Brilliant. Hey there, team. Finally, I'm going to talk you through the workouts that we've got to get after, the Metcons. First up, 2 for Tuesdays. This is going to be a 2-part workout every Tuesday where we're going to be hitting an AMRAP, followed by the rounds and reps achieved in the AMRAP as a chipper for time. Now, I was pumped with the name 2 for Tuesday, buzzing with it, thought I'd come up with something really cool, really funny. And then Steve messaged me an hour ago or so telling me that he'd thought of it years ago and I haven't come up with it. So if you haven't heard it before, give me the credit. If you have, so's about me. Now, what these workouts are going to be an AMRAP. And these might be, let's say, 3, 6, 9, 12 of wall balls and box jump overs. Would work as far up that AMRAP as I could. Let's say I got to 15 reps of each. And then I'd rest for a bit, say 3 minutes, and then work back down as a chipper for time, okay? It's not always going to be that format, but that's an example, okay? So then I go 15, 12, 9, 6, as fast as I could. Why are we doing that? It's going to be improving our ability to tackle different workouts and different strategies, okay? Often when I've got an AMRAP where I'm not sure how far I'm going to get, I've got to gauge it slightly differently than when I've got a for time workout when I know exactly what I'm doing. And if I've got an ascending rep scheme versus a descending rep scheme, I can attack it slightly differently. I might say break up power cleans from the word go if I was doing an ascending workout, but then maybe if I was doing a descending workout, I might hold on because I know I'm almost coming to the end. As well as that, it's going to just give us a big dose of sport-specific work, okay? A lot of this phase, like we said, is building that base, strict work. It's work that doesn't immediately transfer to competing in CrossFit. So having that big dose of sport-specific work on a Tuesday with 2 back-to-back workouts is going to benefit us. Then, here's the return of the mountain. We've got our Sprint Wednesdays. These are going to be sprint repeats with a bit of cycle and rep speed practice in there. They're going to be short intervals for time with movements specifically selected that can benefit from having different gears and speeds, okay? So, for example, I know thrusters can be done at multiple speeds, can't they? Okay, I can do a thruster, maybe I was doing a 20-minute AMRAP, and then if I just had to do 10 reps as fast as I could for time in a sprint, in a competition, I could do thrusters where I'm pulling them down, bouncing out the squat really fast, etc. Same with bar muscle-ups. I can do a loopy glide kip, or I can do knee tuck, very fast cycle speed bar muscle ups. So there's going to be those thrown into those workouts to give you the chance to practice them, to make sure that you do have multiple styles for workouts that have different demands. And I've put in the notes in those workouts, if maybe doing, say, if it was thrusters and bar muscle ups, fast thrusters and fast bar muscle ups all at the same time is gonna be too challenging for you. Then on one interval you can practice your speed thrusters, on another you can practice your speed bar muscle ups. Why are we doing that? Like we said, heightening that peak. Okay, if we're always working at the same speed in the same time domain, we're always just going to be working at that speed. So by increasing the height of that peak, our rep speed, it's going to improve that middle that we're usually working in. Improving rep speed and practicing that top gear. Then, like I touched on in gymnastics, we've got skill Saturdays. These are lower intensity work rest formats with a high skill focus. Handstands are going to feature every week, and particularly high skill handstand variations like pirouettes and ramps. And layered into them as well is going to be some odd object work and some high skill gymnastic hanging work like, let's say, a gymnastics complex of toes to bar, chest to bar, bar muscle ups. There's also the option, because I know for some of us, handstand ramp work, I might need to do that in isolation. I might just need 10 minutes of practice on that. I've put in those options, so we're not always pairing our handstand skill variations with other stuff, if it'd be better for us to just work on it on its own in an even lower intensity. And why? Obviously, lower intensity practice is going to allow us to build that skill capacity. Can't always be going into high skill gymnastics under fatigue. At some point, we've got to practice them without fatigue. Then finally, our whiteboard workouts. These are our dose of sport-specific classic CrossFit Metcons that are going to feature every Friday. They're going to be your chance to test yourself against other JST athletes on the leaderboard. I think there's 2 in this first 6 week that we've done in the past as well. So you'll see some historic JST names on there that you can compare and contrast your scores to. And importantly, in this phase, most of the whiteboard workout is going to be slightly shorter in duration. Conscious that on a Monday, a Tuesday and a Friday, we've got some long workouts to get after and long aerobic conditioning to get after. So these are going to be shorter duration workouts. And again, to practice heightening that peak, okay? There might be a 3 to 5 minute workout where I've just got to go all out. Why? Maintaining and improving competition skills and mindset, okay? If we're not continuing to practice how we compete and push against each other and the challenge of putting our name on a leaderboard, then it'll become too daunting. Allowing for adaptations of long time domain work, that's what I was talking about them being slightly shorter, and again, heightening that peak. Brilliant. That is all for this phase overview and this deep dive into all the what and the why behind it. I'm excited for you guys to get after this 18-week climb phase. If you have any questions, comments, then pop them below in the comments.